Well, hello, and I know it's been a while, but thanks very much for joining me on this video. If you are new here, then welcome. If you're a returning viewer, then also welcome back. Thanks so much for sort of clicking on this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and also hit that notification bell. It really helps the channel grow, and it sort of encourages me to put more content out if I know that people are interested in what I'm doing. So hopefully you'll do that. Anyway, what's this video about today? Well, it is mainly about bipolar disorder, and it's sort of, from my perspective, how it affects me. It's the last of my sort of illness sort of features, because I wanted to put a baseline out of my sort of ailments and illnesses, and then hopefully we'll move on as we progress through the year. Some of these things will get better, etc. So anyway, that's the plan. I'll also now quickly give you a quick update of how things have been going. And it's not been brilliant, to be fair. Physical health is still struggling. I've been getting out every day for a walk and getting some exercise, so I've been able to do that, so that's a positive. But I'm not doing so well with other things. I mean, I still feel, if somebody was to ask me how I am, I'll say, yeah, I'm fine, thanks, yeah, whatever. But in reality, I'm not. I feel crap every day. I feel just unwell, generally unwell. It's hard to explain, but I just don't feel well. And we think that's to do with the diabetes, but we're not sure. So my GP is sort of referring me back to the hospital just because my liver scan that I had recently, which I thought was okay, didn't show enough details for certain things they wanted to look at, so they want me to go for a CT scan. So I've not had an appointment through about that, but I'll let you know about that nearer the time. The other things that I've had blood tests through. Most of them were okay. Liver readings, some of them were a bit abnormal, but that's to be expected given the situation with my liver, I guess. My lithium levels, which I get tested, I'll speak about that a bit later, but which I get tested every month at the moment. I think it's going back to 3 months or 6 months. They're stable, so that's good. So I know it's nothing to do with that. But unfortunately, my blood glucose test, the 3 monthly one, has skyrocketed again, even though I'm trying to change things in my diet and I'm on the maximum dose of metformin. And they're a bit unsure why it's gone up so quickly, because it actually went up quite quickly from being diagnosed to the next blood test. Now it's gone up even more, which is a bit scary. And so I'm waiting on a phone call from another doctor that specialises, who's chatting to the diabetes unit, and they're talking about possibility of adding another drug, which I think is an injection, which doesn't sound too nice, but you got to do what you got to do, I guess, to stay well. So not great news. It's all a bit crappy at the moment, but you just still got to keep going and still got to get out there, try and get exercise, try and eat better, which is really hard when things aren't going well, because when you're struggling with your mental health as well, sometimes eating right isn't the most important thing on your radar, and sometimes just falling into that trap of comfort eating, and then it can cause you problems, and it's just a nightmare at the moment. But we'll keep plodding through it. So that's update on my health. Sorry it's not more cheerful, but it is what it is, and I did say I'd be honest here, so that's this is what I have to stick to. So I wanted to chat to you a little bit about bipolar disorder. So firstly, bipolar disorder is a mental illness, and it's sort of classified as a psychiatric condition. I think what that basically means, from my perspective, is that it doesn't really get managed that well with things like talking psychological therapies and things like that. You need to be medicated, as well. Not to say talking therapies don't help, but you need to be medicated with it well. So what is bipolar disorder? It's a mood disorder, and there are actually three types of, as far as I know, there's three types of bipolar disorder. Now there's bipolar 1, which manifests itself with depression on one side and manic mood episodes on the other side. And the bipolar 2 is focused a lot more on depression on one side, but it also has something called hypermania, which is really elevated mood, but not quite at the manic level. So some people say, "Oh, so it's not quite as bad." Well, I don't know about that, because it depends on the individual, and it depends, like the depression can be crippling, and you tend to get more depression with bipolar 2, as far as I'm aware. And the next one is the third sort of version of bipolar is something called cyclothymia, which is like, I don't really understand what it is. It's kind of like bipolar light, I think. It's still bad, but it's just not as bad. It's more manageable, I think, than the other two. Um, and So that's it. What do I have? I have bipolar type 2, which, yes, it means I have crippling depression, and I have hypermania. And so for me, I was diagnosed, I think, in 2014, around that time, having been diagnosed about 10 years previous with clinical depression and various other disorders, like, I can't think of it now, social anxiety disorder, and things like that. So, and I was on the wrong treatment for a long time, and then I was diagnosed correctly about 10 years later. And since then, it's been a challenge, because it took me a very long time to accept I had bipolar. And there's a big stigma attached to bipolar disorder because of the media and films and things like that. But it's also been a challenging thing for me to sort of get my head round, because, look, I never fit in with anybody, and my how I see my bipolar, I couldn't relate to any other people that I spoke to that had bipolar, or that I interacted with, like, online. But you got to understand, online you tend to get the extremes of people, rather than a good sample of what it's like, and it is different for everybody. So how does it affect me? Well, it affects me, like I said, I get long periods of really crippling depression. I can't explain it. I don't really want to think about it, to be honest. But it's just a horrible place to be, where you can't get motivated to do anything. You can't. You just want to lie around and do nothing. You just want to die. You just want to curl up and die. You're not necessarily, doesn't mean say you're suicidal. I have been suicidal in the past, but on the whole, it just means you just feel worthless, and it's a horrible place to be. And on the other side of that, you get the hypermania, which is weird, because you can go through. I have had no psychosis with it. Psychosis is quite common, but I've not knowingly had psychosis. I mean, maybe I have in the past, but it's never been clinically identified as psychosis. I went through a period where I thought I might be Jesus, but anyway, let's not get into that. But the for me, you have lots of energy. You're not sleeping that great, which isn't an issue because you don't think you need it. So you're bouncing off the walls, basically, and you make really poor decisions about things, and spend money you don't have. I've done loads. I don't want to go into it all, but I suddenly get obsessed with something. So suddenly I'll decide that I want to keep stick insects. So instead of just keeping one species of stick insect, I have to get as many as I can get. So I have like 20 species, and then I need all the things to keep them in, and all the paraphernalia. And I don't need it just a bit at a time. I need it all at once. And you just feel like, oh, this is fantastic. You feel elated about everything. So I've done it with stick insects. I've done it with reptiles. I've done it with running, of course. Possibly done it with tattoos, but we won't go into that. And it's that's probably, although that's I guess the more I feel good during this period, but that period really tends to do the most damage, because you are spending money you shouldn't be, especially if you've got a family like me. I've done some really stupid things that put us in some really bad situations. So it's very important to keep control of all this. So how do we do this? Well, it's medication. And what medication do you use? Well, that is the big question. Everybody's different. Everybody reacts to medications differently, especially when you're talking about medication to manage things in the brain. And I've probably been on about 12, 14 different medications for it. They tried everything else, which is why I put on loads of weight, because of side effects, um, and they affect you differently. So they don't necessarily help. They can make things worse. But hopefully, eventually, you sort of get to a point where you're on the right medication, and that's where I am now. I know I'm on the right medication. I'm on a medication called lithium, which is actually the gold standard for treating bipolar disorder, which is why they didn't try it first, and then I might not have half the health problems I have. And I think part of that reason is because it's it's potentially a very toxic medication, and giving toxic medications to people which potentially could misuse it is has to be considered very seriously. So I was put on it when I was in the depths of a really bad depressed period, and I was given strict instructions of what I should do. So I should drink loads of water if I'm on it, take it at the same time every day, and also you have to have, well, when you're initially on it, you have blood tests every week for a good while until you're at a therapeutic dose, because it's not adjusted by the tablet itself. The dose is adjusted by the amount that sits in your blood. So you're at a therapeutic dose when your blood tests say you're at a therapeutic dose. So, and I'm still having monthly blood tests for it, and I've been on it a few years now. And it's it is potentially dangerous. If you OD on it, then the likelihood is you're going to die, which is why you've got to have regular blood tests. I'm really rubbish at drinking water, so I'm not so good at that, but my blood tests have shown that it's stable, and it has been for a long while. So the results of you having lithium toxicity are very, very serious. They can leave you, it can kill you, or it can leave you pretty disabled. This is a very serious drug, and long-term use, it will look like it's already sort of started destroying my thyroid gland. So I'm on thyroxine now to combat that. But I mean, I kind of knew that was a side effect, but I also knew that it was likely I was going to get thyroid issues anyway, because it's in my family. So the other thing that is a bit more scary is it can, and often does, really damage your kidneys, which is why you're supposed to drink plenty of water and things like that. So I think I've just had my kidneys scanned and they're fine at the moment, but I do need to focus on drinking more water, which I'm not brilliant at. And it's something I should do for general well-being anyway, so I really need to get my head around that. So for me, lithium really balances me out. It's not a cure, because I still struggle every day with bipolar, with the problems of bipolar. And I do still go into depressions, and it tends to keep me off the highs a bit better. It's not so brilliant at keeping me off the lows. That's something I need to focus on. So I've also been having psychological therapy for a good while now, and that's helping to some extent. It gives you the tools to cope with those lows. But it's something you kind of, when you have it, you've got to accept you're always going to have it. There's no cure. It's all about managing it, and along with that goes managing your own expectations of what you're going to be capable of. And I'm don't rely on the mental health service, because although they do their best, they're underfunded. So I'll soon be on my own with this, just referred back to my GP, and I don't feel ready for that at all. But that's the situation it is. I have had a lot of help, but I feel like it's quite scary now being put out there on my own, having to manage it all on my own. I mean, I know I have the GP's help, but getting a GP appointment at the moment is difficult, and you can never have face to face because of COVID. And it's a challenging time for everybody, but I think it's more challenging for those of us that have mental health issues and physical health issues. So it's a difficult one. So that's kind of the gist of bipolar and how it affects me. I know I've not gone into great detail, but I don't want to make this a really long video. And to be honest, it's quite difficult talking about it. So I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sort of ashamed of it because it's something that's completely out of my control, which is why I can talk about it. It's not something I put on myself, and I should maybe just mention that is right. What are the causes of bipolar disorder? Well, there's not a great understanding of this. There's still research going on, but they believe that it can be caused by genetics, which obviously makes sense, and also environmental conditions. So basic trauma, trauma sort of going through birth, trauma as a child, and trauma as a young adult, etc. Because I think this didn't show in me until I was a young adult, really. And although I'm not going to go into details, my childhood would potentially fit that criteria. That there was issues. I don't know whether I did actually have trauma at birth. The umbilical cord was around my throat. I don't think I was breathing when I was born. I know that's caused me some issue physically with nothing major, nothing that you would sort of notice, but with my neurological network anyway. And so whether that could also be a cause factor, I don't know. I'm just guessing, really. But it's an interesting illness which is we're gaining more knowledge as we go along. But diagnosis is very tricky, which is why I was misdiagnosed for so long. It wasn't due to any sort of lack of understanding. It's just it manifests itself differently with different people. So your sort of GP or whatever will just go with what's commonly known at that time. So it did take a while. It does often take a while, and then obviously you've got your huge time of adjustment to new medications, etc. So you've got to be patient with it if you're newly diagnosed, and just expect things maybe not to go in a straight line necessarily. So they certainly didn't with me anyway. That's my experience. So that's enough me going on about all my ailments for one video. And if you have any questions, please do ask down in the comment section. I will reply to them all. And I will maybe put some links down in the description about bipolar disorder, and just in case you want to read up on them. There's a fair bit of information out on them. If you go to the Mind website, that's a good place to start, of course. So with that being said, I will say goodbye to you, and hopefully it won't be as long as it has been from the previous video to this one for the next video anyway. So I'm going to keep sort of trying to eat better, keep getting out for a walk every day, and I'm still, obviously, until I hear what's going on regarding my diabetes, I can't really do much further than I'm already doing. So I would say that I've stopped testing my blood myself because it wasn't really making any difference. I wasn't learning any more from it. And I figured if I'm going to start using some drugs which I have to inject myself, which is potential, I mean, it's not definite, but it's potential, then I thought I'd give myself a bit of a break from stabbing myself in the finger 4 times a day. So anyway, with that being said, I will definitely see you in the next one. Okay, bye.